Hold on. You're saying that he left a hearing where he said that he was willing to address this and that he has refused to take any meetings with you. Is that your sworn testimony?
While the career staff at FSA have continued to enter dialogues, the Secretary's office in both administrations continued dialogue. The Undersecretary's office continued dialogue. We specifically requested meetings with the Chief Operating Officer, which...
Well, I appreciate you sharing that because, Mr. Hurt, this is only partially on your watch. And I talked to Secretary DeVos yesterday because I was real concerned about students and making sure that students have what they need. Because really that's what this is all about. You don't even exist if we're not providing the kind of service to students that they deserve. And really, you're having to come here in the last 24 hours with very little notice is a disservice to you. It's a disservice to those students. And what I guess is more appalling to me is that Mr. Runcie decided to not come back, has not met with Mr. Drager when you have secretaries of both administrations willing to do that, and then wants to avoid follow-up questions, some of which I know I asked personally of him back in November of 2015, some of which Inspector General Ty has identified over and over and over again. And for him to suggest that it's all your fault or all Secretary DeVos's fault, you can't agree with that statement, do you? That it's all your fault or Secretary DeVos's fault?
I couldn't speak for what Mr.
I've given you 40 minutes to come up with a better answer, Mr. Hurt. I'm sure you've talked to counsel. I'm sure you've talked to everybody else, and they may not want you to say anything, but I would remind you under sworn testimony, we can compel you to answer the question. So at this point, is it totally your responsibility for what has happened on improper payments? Totally and completely.
I am the program accountable official for direct...
Great answer to a question I didn't ask again, Mr. Hurt. You're making this more difficult than you need to be. Is 100% of the responsibility yours, Mr. Hurt?
No, sir.
All right. Is 100% of it Secretary DeVos's?
No, sir.
So if that's the case, and we understand, and I agree with that 100% of it is not your fault, how do we fix it? How do we fix this problem where I'm not coming back here with unbelievable billions of dollars, customer service reports that are not there, an Inspector General's request for a number of things, which I understand she gave you a little bit of a pass because apparently in the last few days you've agreed to do that. So I would assume that there's a new sheriff in town and so they're going to get it done. How do we make sure that this doesn't happen?
We stay vigilant on oversight, sir.
All right, so what is success going forward? So let me put it more bluntly. If you're going to get a performance bonus, at what number do we peg that to?
It's hard to peg it for improper payments to a number.
Well, it's not hard for the American people. The American people said if you lose over $3 billion, they would think that you should get a 0 performance bonus. And I know that you don't agree with that, but at some point we're going to have to get to the bottom line, and figure this out. So what's the number?
The estimate is variable based on the methodology, so I can't come up with an
okay, here's
number, sir.
Since we do have oversight capability, here's what I need from you, and I need you to take this back to the Secretary and make sure that we get it. We need to know the matrix for what performance, good performance, excellent performance, and poor performance is going to be for your senior management, for the new COO, whomever that may be, for yourself, for the others, and we need to understand what the matrix is. We need to understand where customer service comes in and what it factors in with that as well. And if I ever hear about government officials not being willing to meet with key stakeholders because they're too busy collecting their check. You know, there was a song in the 70s. I'm dating myself. But it seems like that Mr. Runcie could be singing a song, "Take the Money and Run," because that's what he's done, and that's what the American taxpayers have seen it as, is an irresponsible way to hold government accountable for their actions. Now, I'm not asking you to comment on that, but here's what I am asking you to do. We need to know when you're going to get the Inspector General's recommendations done, a time frame, a specific time frame on what you're going to accomplish and how you're going to accomplish it. What's a reasonable amount of time to get that plan back to this committee?
I think there's a specific amount of time for us to develop our corrective action. I think that's coming due within a month.
That's with her. I'm saying a plan of action to this committee. Is 45 days enough to get a plan of action on how you're going to address that back to this committee?
Yes, sir.
All right, I see heads nodding in the back. I don't want to make a request that is too difficult, okay? All right, so we're going to do that. The other part of that is that, and I don't think you're going to get much resistance on this, we need to know what the performance matrix are and how we know when we're doing a great job, a good job, a mediocre job, and a poor job. Pull in some of the comments. The next time, I don't want to have 90% of the comments coming back negative. You don't either, do you, Mr. Hurt?
No, sir.
I didn't think so. All right. So, Inspector General Ty, I'm going to close with this. I need you to help prioritize the recommendations you've made in terms of those open issues that are there from previous reports. It is critically important that we communicate those at the very top level with the Secretary and those that are going to implement it. Any change of administration, there can be a drop of a baton, so to speak. I don't want that to happen, so I'm asking you if you would get that to this committee as well.
Yes, we will.
And is 45 days enough for you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We will do that and go there. Lastly, I think it's appropriate for me to say, Mr. Hurt, I'm not blaming you for this, but you are partially responsible. And in doing that, I'm going to be myopically focused on results. All right? My favorite quote is no matter how beautiful the strategy, we must occasionally look at the results. So I don't want to hear about the great plan. I want to see about the results, because I don't want to have another hearing like this. Or if we have another hearing, I want us to be talking about and celebrating the successes that we have. Does that make sense to all of you? Do you think we can do that?